What's up guys, this is Yasin and today we're going to be going over the best going first cards that you can side or even potentially main deck, depending on the deck that you're playing. Some of them are thrust targets, some of them are Saki one-ofs that, if you draw, usually you kind of win. They feel a little disgusting, so yeah, let's get right into it. I think there's like 48 of these cards, and we're going to be ranking them in these 4 categories. So yeah, the first one is Mutually Fear Destruction. It's really similar to like the Eye of Truth, but instead of being a continuous trap, it's a normal trap. So again, it is a thrust target, so it lingers. And it reads like both players have to keep their hands revealed this turn. And also it has another weird clause of like if both players have like the same card in their hand, they can't do anything with it. Obviously, if you didn't know, against Vanquish Soul, if like a card is already revealed, then they can't reveal the card again. So if you look at your opponent's hand, then your opponent can't use like the Vanquish Soul effects, and also cannot use Jokul, but Lantern can still be used. So yeah, keep that in mind. With all that said, I still think Mutually Fear Destruction is a low mid. It's like a one-of at best, and only if you're playing Thrust. And honestly, I think there's better options overall. Even against like Vanquish Soul, I just don't really know if this is like the best card that you can necessarily play. So depending on the deck that you're playing, it could be worth considering, but I would not consider it like a solid card. So for me, it's mid, whereas the Eye of Truth, in my opinion, is not worth playing whatsoever because it is a 3-of in your side deck. It takes a lot of space. You have to physically hard draw it, whereas with Mutually Fear Destruction, it's a thrust target, so you can afford to only play one. And, you're not going to be breaking on this card too often or anything. So yeah, this card is just like, it's too much space for like only one matchup. And it's just like for going first only post game 1. Absolutely not worth considering whatsoever. Full Force Virus. This is usually one of the worst viruses out of like all 4. And honestly, right now, it's just like not good. So yeah, I'm not a big fan either. Gravity Collapse, I think it's like at the very top of mid just because it has a lot of like exploitable weaknesses. If people are playing, Book of Eclipse or Regeki and stuff like that, which, I mean, not everybody's playing necessarily, but sometimes you also do get hand trapped to death or you get like Dustered, then you don't even have like a Synchro or whatever, or like this card dies before you get to even use it. So there's a lot of ways, like in theory, where this card can go wrong. And I think relying way too much on this card to resolve to make you win games is just not worth it whatsoever. You'd rather have like a lingering trap card that you can flip right away. I think in the Yummy deck, for example, a lot of people are considering this, but there's another trap card that you can play in Yummy that I think is actually easier to trigger, and it's Harpy's Featherstorm. This card, not only good in Reizo Mitsurugi, of course, it's really good in just a bunch of decks overall. It's technically a generic card when you think about it, because you can go into like Castel, or, I mean, there's a lot of options just overall. It's not even just like a rank 4 or whatever, or like a rank 1. There was even like Silhouette Rabbit into Swamp Mirror, and then when you summon it, it becomes like a Wind-Wing Beast, and then you just flip this on draw phase or standby, and then you kind of just win the game on the spot. So I think this is better because it lingers, so it's safer into like, back row removal and stuff like that. But yeah, Gravity Collapse, I think it's like really overpowered, like the card itself, but again, it can easily go wrong. Artifact Sanctum, I think, is a solid option overall in the side deck. It's just a one-of, and it's a thrust target for Artifact, well, I mean, Sanctum into Lancia against the Malice deck. But against Crystron, it's really not that good because, honestly, that deck has, like, no problem just delaying the Crystron actions by a turn, and then still doing enough with the K9 stuff. So it depends on, like, how hard you got hand trapped. If you got a big board, and then you also got Lancia, then yeah, the game is usually over. But if you don't have much, and then your opponent still has like Jokul summon like Sulfadol, or even like nothing, like Jokul summon Jokul, then like you can be under Lancia and not really care too much. So yeah, I don't really think that this is necessarily like the best against them, but still Malice is a really good deck right now. Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. This is a really interesting one, and a lot of people have actually considered this. So you can play this in Yummy, you can normal summon it and then make like a Lingeribo, and then, you give this to your opponent, and then you special summon like your Yummy monsters, and then you play the game from there. It's not too bad, but I mean, I guess it plays around like Nibiru and stuff like that, so it's cool. In the Yummy Mirror, like you give this to your opponent, but then your opponent can still make like an SP, but it does block the Obedience Schooled, which is really nice. It's just that you still have to play like 3 copies of this. It takes up your normal summon. It's not that great. It has a lot of dead matchups. Like the K9 decks can just tribute summon over this, or I mean, if some people are playing DD Crew or Bestials, they can easily just banish this. So it really just adds like more weaknesses or like more normal summons to your deck. I'm not like the biggest fan, but I can easily be swayed the other like way. Like if someone can convince me that this card is much better than I think, I would be willing to like change my mind. So yeah, maybe Ibli is the goo. I've got no idea, but I think this card's like fine overall. So you know what? Like, I don't know. I kind of want to keep it there, but it's not like super generic. I think only like Yummy is like one of the only like really good decks right now that can kind of take advantage of it. Speaking of Yummy, a card that is really good against them is Power Filter, and this card is also decent going second against them. The issue is this card is really easy to like get rid of. I mean, not if you, I mean, if you're going first, then you win the game. Unlike Contact C, this is only a blowout when you go first, so I just don't think this card is worth it at all. It's only really good against like that one matchup, and yeah, it just, I don't know. There's also other cards that are like searchable that are I mean, not better obviously, but almost as good while having like more flexibility than this. Like I'm gonna give an example right now. Clockwork Knight, I think this card is extremely good because it's searchable by by Clockwork Knight. So in the Crystron deck, I mean, Clockwork Knight is searchable off of Clockwork Knight. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say. Jesus, this is so dumb. But yeah, this card is good going first and second. It makes all their monsters machines, so they can't make the Yummy Snatchy, and also a Croaky is never gonna pop or anything. And Yummy Surprise also cannot bounce back anything, so they can't really out this inherently. They do have to go into SP Little Knight, which obviously plays in your favor. Their beatdown game is horrendous, absolutely abysmal, and their monsters are always super weak. So if your first action going second is activate this, and they don't already have the Herald of the Arclight on the field, it's gonna be rough for them. It really will be. So yeah, this card's really awesome. The fact that, again, it is like searchable in your deck, it makes it, to me at least, much better than Power Filter. But yeah, it does depend, I guess, on the deck that you're playing. Like, if Yubel out of nowhere is like a good deck on this format, then maybe this card could be good. I don't know. Anyways, there can only be one. I think this is not really like an Exodia card for me, just because K9 Vanquish Soul is like one of the only decks that can really play this card super well. It's like extremely good against like Yummy, but no, they don't really have too many outs to this, huh? Yeah, they would have to go into, actually they do, yeah, normal summon, and then like, yeah, normal summon a beast, go into Spellcaster, summon a beast, and then go into a warrior, banish, and then they still have to find a way to like get rid of the SP, and then they can start playing from there. It just like buys you more time, but like if you brick and you only have this, then you still lose. But if you have like a good hand and you have this, then obviously you win. But that's kind of like the issue that I had with like unsearchable continuous trap card one-ofs. It doesn't really fix too many issues, because again, the card is not searchable, so it's really just like a random weird one-off that you're playing in your deck. But it's not like it makes the deck, you know, more resilient going first when you're getting hand-trapped, unlike this card right here, which I think is completely unfair. Like, if you're now playing Call by the Grave in your main deck or side deck, you're just giving free wins to your opponent. And I think Triple Tactic Talent is kind of like in the same boat. Like, this card is really good, just because you don't want to get a hand trapped, and your deck should be able to make layered disruptions to the point where board breakers are not beating you, or at least like one board breaker is not doing anything, so it has to be paired up with like another board breaker. If you can put yourself in that position, then you're Gucci. But yeah, the hand traps are obviously always harder to counter, I guess you can say, because sometimes your hand is going to be just a little weak, and these cards, they make weak hands better, like weak hands that only have one layer of play, but they also make like good hands better, because now even if your opponent has like 3 hand traps, it might just not be enough. So yeah, these cards are much better than these kinds of cards. And I may as well knock the other ones out of the way. I think Rivalry is a little better than There Can Only Be One, because in the Crystron deck, you can pair up Rivalry with a searchable Clockwork Knight. So if you draw this, then you literally FTK the opponent, because this combo is unfair. Your opponent can only control one monster on the field at a time, unless, of course, it's against the machine deck. So yeah, this is unfair. It's like the Zombie World Rivalry combo from back in the days. It's really nice, but yeah, it's also Yummy can play this really well, and Yummy is more resilient, I want to say, and more consistent overall than K9 Vanquish Soul, so I guess that's like the main comparison that I kind of wanted to do. And Goes and Match is the other card that I'm looking for. There we go. I think this card's also kind of solid, but it's definitely much worse than these cards for the most part, even though it's still a decent card, I guess you can say. Anyways, Non-Fusion Area. This card is just only targeted to beat Dragon Tail and nothing else, so it's really hard for me to like justify this card being a solid card when Dragon Tail's seeing like maybe 14, 15, whatever % representation in tournaments. It's just not enough to my liking for to have like an unsearchable 3-of in your side deck that you're really just siding in against like one deck post game 1. So yeah, you're losing like 20% of your side deck just for one matchup. Macrocosmos, I can't really think of like too many decks that are really trying to play this card. It's just not good. Yeah, I'm probably gonna put it there. Imperial Iron Wall, I mean, it's good against like Malice and Crystron, but as we've already established, like you can also play, you know, Sanctum into Lancia with Thrust, so I think that's just like overall a little better. Different Dimension Ground, this is a pretty cool card. It also lingers. So I'll probably just put it like here-ish. I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know, it depends on the matchup, but I think Malice can still play this card really well, especially with Thrust and stuff like that. Gesture of Fenrir, I think this card is really interesting. So you can play Fenrir in Dragon Tail, so not only does it interrupt the opponent right away, but also it replenishes your hand so you can start using like your searched Fenrir for fusion material for, you know, Altharion, and then you can start recycling back your other hand shops. And also this card is good going second, so it's not like you're just playing, you know, a card that is only good for one kind of purpose. It outs Floodgates, I mean it outs non-fusion area as well, in case your opponent had that card. Just overall, Fenrir has always been like a decent all-across-the-table card. It does everything on its own, right? Except, I guess, like a one-card combo. I mean, it can technically do that if you play Rizard with a lot of bricks, but we're not trying to do that. Hell no. Anyways, BLOWOUT Laughs. This is one of my favorite normal chop cards that you can set with Triple Tactic Thrust, but also send with Foolish Barrel Goods. I think this card is remarkable. It's not an Exodia card just because, I mean, it's technically not a card that like, when you flip it, the game ends. Like, these cards, I feel like if they're used against me, it's insanely difficult for me to win. Like, I need to win the lottery almost. Like, if I have one hand shot and it gets hit by Cobble of the Grave, the game's over. If I go second, my opponent has combo and Harpy's Featherstorm, the game's over. And if I get a hand shot, if I hand shot my opponent was, and then my opponent goes Tactic Talent, look at my hand, rip another card, make the full, like the perfect end board to beat all my other cards in my hand, I lose the game. BLOWOUT Laughs, no, you can technically still win, like through BLOWOUT Laughs calling. Even like Yummy Snatchy, technically you can still OTK if you got Obedience Schooled, and then, you know, you normal summon Cup C, Surge the Field spell. It's gonna be a little rough, but I think this card is ultra flexible. I mean, it's pretty much like the better breakthrough skill back in the days. It has a great on-field effect, a great graveyard effect, and it just does so much. So I do like it. I just think because of its flexibility and also because of its lingering, you know, aspect, I think it's definitely deserves its spot at like the very top of Solid, or at least like somewhere around here. Deck Devastation Virus. Yeah, this one, I think I'm probably gonna have to put it at the very top of mid, because I can't really think of like too many decks that are trying to play this, because it's really good against like Vanquish Soul, but there's also like Crush card for Vanquish Soul. Hold on a second, is it even that good against Vanquish Soul? I forgot. This checks for 1500 or less attack, right? Yeah, then Crush card is 1500 or more attack. Yeah, so it's actually pretty bad against Vanquish Soul. Yeah, most of their monsters have really high attack. But I guess it does, like, remove Ash and stuff like that, I guess, from their hands. So they do lose a lot of attributes. But yeah, no, I still play Crush card over. I think Crush card would probably be, like, the better one of Thrust target. So it's interchangeable with Sanctum. I think both of these cards are, like, to be considered. Triple Tactic Thrust. I think this is, like, at the very worst section of Exodia. It's only, like, really broken and, like, on the level of talent if you're setting, like, really broken trap cards, depending on the context. But on a Game 1 setting, I think this card is worse, because if you're setting, like, Dominus Purge or Imperm, or even, like, you know, Impulse, which is a good card, but it's still not, like, insane, it doesn't feel that good. It just feels like instead of drawing Thrust, you physically drew the hand trap instead, which is, you know, I could have asked for more, but... yeah, obviously post Game 1, this card becomes exponentially better. But if you get hit by like Holy Su, Izuna, Nibiru, Bestials, Phantasme, then your opponent has a monster on the field, so Thrust becomes like actually unfair. So yeah, depends on the context, but it's... I think the card is a little too good to be in this section, so I'm just still gonna put it there. I still think it's insane. Solemn Strike. This card I think is like one of the worst Solemns right now, just because... there's a lot of board breakers right now, and there's a lot of decks that just don't really feel like they care all that much about Strike, because they have so many layers of push. Like the K9 engine just doesn't really care too much. You know, reveal Joe Cool, summon another 5, you strike that, okay, normal summon Joe Cool effect, search Lantern, revive back the monster, then you strike, and then you still play the game. It's not enough. So if you're just striking that and you're letting a Dark Ruler resolve, it's just not really good. But Solemn Judgment, on the other hand, I think is extremely good, because you can negate Dark Ruler, you can negate Droplet, you can negate, you know, engine starters like Obedient Schooled. The Solemn Strike can't even negate Obedient Schooled. Solemn Warning can also negate Obedient Schooled. So I think the order, for me, very personally, you can disagree with that. I think Judgment is number 1, Warning is number 2, and Strike is number 3. It's very... like, the exact positioning doesn't really matter too much, but I think the only difference that I would make here would be that Judgment and Warning belong in, like, a higher section, Whereas like Strike, on the other hand, it should be like one level, you know, down, you know? But yeah, whatever. Heat Wave, this card is like, I don't know. I think I'll probably just put it in like not worth because I did consider it myself, and I think the card is extremely good in like a board breaker format. So it's actually go first, you draw this card, you have full combo. You say, you know what, I'm not going to full combo now, I'm just going to full combo next turn. You activate Heat Wave, and then your opponent passes turn. All these board breakers are nullified, all the engine obviously is nullified. And then, you know, next turn you just go, okay, full combo, OTK. You don't even have to like play into a board breaker, you know, deck whatsoever, because you're just gonna dismiss them completely since you're killing your opponent now, which is much better. In a world where hand traps exist, Heat Wave just doesn't really make too much sense. However, I will say one thing, I think Heat Wave is still really good in a format with Perulia, Angel, and Logbird, because if you're going first, you activate Heat Wave, and then obviously your opponent had to like Perulia on standby phase, and you're using this at the very start of your main phase 1, and then you can go, okay, whatever, I got hit by Perulia, I got hit by potentially 2 Perulia, and then you start using infinite search cards, and then even if your opponent has like a Jewel and Logbird and tries to like hold it for next turn, it's not going to be useful, because next turn, you know, like you don't really need searches anymore since you have already used like all your spell cards to search your monsters, and then all you need to do is basically just summon 4 K9 monsters and then attack 2000 4 times. You're checking Nib, you're not really losing to like Ash, Valor, Imperm, whatever. So, you know, the card is technically not too bad. Therefore, I think, because I did put a lot of thought into it, I do think this card can be played, you know, I mean, it can be used to, like, win a YCS. It's just that you're gonna have to, like, take a lot of risks. And against decks like Malice, which just do not care about, like, Board Breaker Approach, and they play, like, 23 hand traps, this card is not doing anything. Absolutely nothing. And also they can survive by, I guess, like summoning, you know, Hare and then banish Rabbit and then play on your turn, so I don't know. But it's a cool card. Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon, if anything, that's going to be a one-of as a thrust target, and it's pretty cool against K9 Vanquish Soul, but then again, it's not like that insane. It's really good against Yummy as well, honestly. If they activate Obedient School, they summon 3 monsters, you just go, okay, activate Karma Cannon, flip everything face down. That's a nice deck you got there. By the way, there's also Chain Disappearance that I completely forgot to include here. Chain Disappearance would probably also be at the very top of mid, because it doesn't really cover too many matchups when you really think about it, so I don't know. And also anything that can get hit by like Duster or Lightning Storm, usually to me, it's not the best. I'd rather have cards that are flippable right away or that can negate stuff, just for safety measures. Speaking of Duster and Lightning Storm, Eradicator Epidemic Virus is extremely good against board breakers, but you do need to have a Dark Monster with 2500 or more attack. So I think it's like slightly worse, you know, as an approach to like solve the board breaker problem than Heat Wave, because Heat Wave you don't really need anything. It's just like as long as you look at your hand looks good, you go, okay, whatever. I'll just Heat Wave now, and then next turn I kill you. Eradicator, you still have to set up like a board, and then you set Eradicator, then you use it on your opponent's draw phase or standby, whatever. You pray to God that your opponent doesn't have Super Poly on draw phase, and then yeah, you hope you win. But in a deck like Mitsurugi, I think this card could be good. Same thing with like deck Devastation Virus. Gravekeeper's Inscription is really good against Dragon Tail. And honestly, it's really good against Yummy as well. You call the effect of neither player can special summon from the grave. It is pretty good. And honestly, it just covers a lot of ground. But the issue is it also beats yourself. So, I don't know. I think I'll probably put it here. It's a nice card, honestly, for sure. So, yeah, Malice can play it, depending obviously on the effect that they're using, because it also beats themselves. Anti-Spell Fragrance is an extremely good card, especially in a format with like Duster, Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler, etc. I guess they can change Droplet to it, but it is what it is. At least they had to use a bunch of cards from the hand instead of like dodging your negation and then playing into your board. And also they had to waste like several cards. So, because they're probably negating like everything on your field. So I think this is like one of the best Saki, like one of that doesn't negate a hand trap so that you can play in Yu-Gi-Oh! Secret Village of the Spellcasters is an extremely good card. I mean, it also negates the board breakers, so that's the reason why, you know, it's definitely there. I think I'm probably going to put it here just because, I mean, it's playable maybe in White Forest. If you can play Ancient Fairy Dragon, you can destroy like the White Forest field spell, and then you search this, and then it's a joke to have like a, you know, a spellcaster on the field. But again, if you do get a hand trapped, it's not the best. So that's the problem that I have. Metal Chonus is not like the most generic card in the world, but Yummy can play it really well, and it's extremely good in the mirror match. You know, they normal summon something, you go Metal Chonus, special summon, banish face down, and if that's their only Lyra push, usually the game kind of ends because Obedient Schooled going second in the Yummy mirror is actually quite bad. You know, you summon 3 monsters at the same time, and then you get double Book of Moon, and then the other card gets popped, and then your normal summon gets checked by this. It's usually checkmate if you got like this in combo. So yeah, and also hand traps, like I said, not the best into the Yummy Mirror match, and if you rely on board breakers, then this card can still allow you to protect yourself. So yeah, and the exact positioning is kind of like interchangeable with everything else. I don't really care too much. Crossout Designator, this card's really good. It's just that, you know, I'm not trying to negate like Chummies with this post game 1. So if you want to main deck it, then it's really insane because you can negate just about everything, but yeah, it does depend on the deck that you're playing. If you're playing Malice, that you can play more non-engine overall, but in a deck like Vanquish Soul, this card makes no sense at all because you can't play all the hand traps. You can only play like the attribute hand traps. Mind Drain is pretty shitty. It's just not a good card. Soul Drain is cool. It's really good against Dragon Tail. It's good against Malice. It's good against a lot of decks. It's really, really nice. It can be... the issue is that, again, it's just like an unsearchable 3 of... So it's hard for me to like justify it. It's not like these cards that are thrust targets. So I'm probably just going to put it there. Dimensional Fissure. This card's a little better just because, I mean, even then, I'd probably just still put it here. Just because this card can be used aggressively by like Mitsurugi so that you don't lose to Troll, and Trap Trick shouldn't even be on this list, but Dimensional Bear is a cool card. I think it's like maybe here. If you call Synchro against Yummy, they just make like a half board and then on your turn you still lose. So I don't really think it's that good. Against Dragon Tail, you call Fusion, and yeah, this is like almost a turn skip, but you do have to call it on draw phase or standby, just for safety measures, otherwise they can chain 5 mana and then fuse. So the fact that they can always chain 5 mana either on like your own turn or like, you know, like their turn, that's kind of like a turn off for me. It makes Dimensional Barrier feel a little less good. And also Blazing Cartesia and Mululu can beat Dimensional Barrier because again, you're negating the effect of fuse, but then they still have a monster that fuses on your turn, so... I don't know, I think there's like better options still, even for that deck. Scale Drain is pretty good, but it gets outed by like most decks except Yummy. So yeah, I'm probably gonna put it there. I guess they can Croaky and Yummy Surprise, but that's pretty much it. Dragon's Mind, I mean, unless you're playing... I don't even know like which deck's gonna abuse this really well, maybe White Forest, because they play Foolish Burial Goods. That's pretty much it. There's obviously other decks that can utilize this, but I wouldn't... By the way, this is Dragon's Mind, not Dragon's Mind. But yeah, I can't really think of like too many decks where this card is like necessarily worth playing. Like a lot of decks can play it, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. Small Archfiends. Yeah, this card sucks. Shared Ride. No, sorry, I'm stupid. You know, actually, yeah, this is Shared Ride. Yeah, and this is Mistaken Arrest. Yeah, so Shared Ride not worth because we're not in 2018 in Sky Striker mirrors anymore. But Mistaken Arrest is insanely good. And it's also, I mean, it's playable in Malice as well as Yummy. Those decks don't really need to search out too much. And then Zombie World, I don't know, you're playing Clockwork Knight instead, so why would you play this? And then we've got Mischief of the Gnomes, which, I mean, it's only really good for like one deck, so I'd probably just put it there. And then Magic Deflector is like horrendous. I mean, you can negate like the Vanquish Soul field spell. Against Yummy, you negate Yummy Surprise, and then their field spells, which is also not the best because... Whatever, if you want to negate board breakers, honestly, just play Anti-Spell and Judgment. Like, why would you play Magic Deflector? I don't know. Like, if this was a runic format, then yeah, Magical Deflector would have been insane, but it's not. Or I guess when the MST archetype will come out, and there's going to be a lot of quick play spells or field spells and stuff. But yeah, right now, this card is just not at its peak. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this tier list. You guys let me know how much you agree or very much agree, right? Nobody can disagree because I'm always right, of course. In the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.